Warning! The root's on fire! You're about to experience the most high-octane, pedal-to-the-metal controversial show of your life. Please buckle up and hold on tightly. This station is not responsible for injuries. This is Wayne Allyn Root, raw and unfiltered, with America's favorite conservative rock star. Direct from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas. What time is it? It's time for war! Here's your host, 100% raw truth, 100% American made, the warrior, Wayne Allyn Root.
I got to tell you, to go an hour straight through with almost no ads and a very quick recovery break, my voice is not, I don't know if it's going to last, but I'm going to try. We're going to try. It's like, you know what you say to me, Patar says, well, Wayne, calm down. Just talk at a lower level and don't be so excitable. First of all, that's me. That is me, and I don't want to not be me. And second of all, what else would make this podcast better than everybody else's? If I speak like everybody else, then I'm just another schmuck who's got no energy. Okay, there is no one else in the conservative world who has my personality and my energy and my passion. No one else. And that's what sets me apart from the crowd. And that's why in a month and a half, I'll be 65 years old, and I've got a new TV show. That's why I've got 2 TV shows and a podcast, and a nationally syndicated radio show, and best-selling books, and a column read by, now it's 11 million people in the last 3 years. That's why. Because of my energy. No one else has it. My personality, no one else has it. So it's hard to go through an hour straight with almost no breaks of any kind. But that's the way people want their podcasts nowadays. That's what we're doing, and I think it's going to be a huge hit. And we're taking my new TV show called America Speaks, and in a matter of 24 to 48 hours, it'll now be a YouTube show and a Rumble show, live. YouTube show and a Rumble show live at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And then replayed on Real America's Voice at midnight every single night. Midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. A lot of names and times to remember. But I got a lot going on, man. But it's a whole new world out there. And we're kind of revamping everything we do. So this show is on Rumble. This show's on Gateway Pundit. This show's on Red Talk? I can't even remember anymore. Red Talk or Talk Red? I can't even. Talk Red. TalkRed.com. And, of course, my website, rootforamerica.com. And my podcast, this one will be live every day, like today, at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. And then my new show, America Talks, that is a midnight show on RAV, but it's now a live show starting in 24 to 48 hours on YouTube and Rumble at 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. All right. Great guest, but I have to mention my advertiser first because, of course, they pay the bills, and we love them and appreciate them. This segment sponsored by Tangible Investments. How important is it to own gold? Well, China's central bank just increased their gold reserves for the 18th consecutive month. China's prepared for what's coming, and the million-dollar question is, are you? But buying gold alone is not enough. You need to buy it at the right price, and this is where buyers get misled. Other gold companies say we only charge 1% over cost, but whose cost are they talking about? See, words matter, and people can play games with words. The real question you need to ask is, what are you charging me over spot price? And then compare that answer to Tangible Investments. And by the way, let me mention, the time to buy gold is not when it's soaring, it's when it's falling. Now is the time to buy gold. Now is when I'm adding to all my gold collection, because now you get a great price and you're averaging in a much lower price. Now, I've known the guys at Tangible for decades, literally decades. Tangible's been in business for more than 40 years, have handled more than $2 billion in transactions with gold, and their team brings over 200 combined years of experience. Right now, Tangible Investments is offering gold bullion at just 1% over spot. That's unheard of. And they offer silver as low as 3% over spot, unheard of. If you want gold and silver and precious metals or rare coins from a real firm with real credibility and honest pricing at the time where China has increased their gold reserves for a record 18 straight months, call Tangible Investments right now, toll free, 888-330-4351. That's 888-330-4351. 51, or go to their website that they created just for my fans, rootforgold.com. Rootforgold.com. Tell them War sent you one more time. Rootforgold.com or toll free 888-330-4351. They're selling gold only 1% over spot, silver only 3% over spot, and all the rest of them are full of crap. Simple as that. All right, rootforgold.com. All right, Jeff Gunter's with us, our guest, and we got a little bit of time to ramble and rumble here. Unlike the old days, we're always rushing. Jeff Gunter's with us, candidate for Congress in Nevada CD3, and this is his last chance to be with us before the primary. The primary is tomorrow. Tomorrow night, we're going to find out if Jeff has won, and he's the new candidate representing the Republican Party for CD3 against Susie Lee. He's the former U.S. ambassador to Iceland under President Trump, a NATO nation. Very important posting. Successful businessman and dermatologist specializing in skin cancer surgery. He's got clinics all over the Southwest United States. His website, drjeffgunter.com. drjeffgunter.com. Primary day in Nevada is tomorrow, June 9th. Big night. I'll be with you when the day is over. I'll be with Jeff at his campaign headquarters, looking at the final results, and hopefully we've got ourselves a big win.
Absolutely. Things are looking great and fantastic, and so honored to be with Wayne Allyn Rootski.
You didn't know that was
Wayne
my name, did you?
Allyn Ski Rootski. I love
I
it.
knew there was a reason I love to ski.
The only problem having Wayne Allyn Root at your events is the people who work there, the great servers, the great bartenders, they are freaking out because in the flesh, live, they're seeing Wayne Allyn Root. And I'm like, what am I, chopped liver? I mean, what's going on here? But Wayne, thank you for your support. You have such great following. I'm very excited for your new format. I really do believe that you are filling a void that was lost when we lost Rush Limbaugh. And you are actually filling that void. There's so many people out there. There's so many voices out there that want to be heard. And there's so many people that want to speak up. And God bless you for having the time and the ability to do that. It's really a tremendous, and I can tell you with my campaign, that's all I hear on the road is that you're endorsed by Wayne Allyn Root. We're following his top 10. His top 10 reasons for supporting you, Jeff. So God bless you, Wayne. And more importantly, God bless all your viewers and your brave listeners who are willing to speak the truth. That's really what it is.
So you said I'm filling a void that was lost when, that was opened up when Rush Limbaugh died. You're filling a void because I'm going to bring you back to memory lane. It was a lot of years ago. I'm pretty sure the last time a Republican represented CD3 was John Porter. I'm almost certain that was the last guy. There may have been one guy since then who won one time and then he lost and nobody's ever won again. But I think it was John Porter who was the last guy to represent CD3. And so it's been a long time, even though the district is dead even, which means it's a real pickup opportunity for the Republican Party to pick up a House seat. It hasn't been represented by a Republican, I would guess, in 10 or 15 years. I don't know if you have any idea who was the last one or how many years it's been, but it's been a long time.
It's been way too long. And considering that this was a positive Trump district in 2024. So, you want to have representation that actually represents the people, your constituents. And that's not what's going on here in CD3. Think about it. My opponent, socialist Susie Lee, she voted against no tax on tips. She voted against no tax on overtime, and she voted against no tax on Social Security. It is mind-boggling, Wayne. Mind-boggling, completely out of it. And then you look at her rankings by the Heritage Foundation. This so-called representative, bipartisan, I don't really understand it. She is to the left of Bernie Sanders, if you talk to the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah.
Completely out of touch. Busy doing her $3 million deals and insider trading type things. She's
very wealthy woman. She's a very wealthy woman. She's a very wealthy woman. She doesn't know anything about the lives of ordinary Las Vegans, nothing at all. And by the way, I'm the guy who I did the homework and came up with the research that proves that she is basically a communist because Heritage rates everyone from 0 to 100, how often you agree with conservative values at Heritage, mostly economic policies, but also other areas of conservative thought. And most of the Democrats are like at 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%. It shows you how pathetic they are. And then you've got like a Bernie Sanders who's consistently between like 10% and 15%, which is horrible. You know, that means he's against us 90% of the time. But it's better than most of the other Democrats because he's okay on guns and a couple of other minor issues that involve civil rights. He's not that bad on some of those, but he's still a communist. He's the most left-wing member of the U.S. Senate. That's a fact. And calls himself a socialist. And Susie Lee's rating is often 0. And Lifetime, it's 2%. Far lower than anyone else I could find. She's got zeros year after year after year in each term, and overall 2%. She makes Bernie Sanders look like a raving Barry Goldwater conservative. Crazy.
Well, she's fighting it out with Fidel Castro, Mao Zedong, and Karl Marx.
Stalin.
I mean, they're gonna put them all in the octagon, and you're gonna see her competing with those three guys. I mean, the whole thing is just absolutely unreal. And the most important thing, though, is she does not represent the people of CD3 here in Nevada. She doesn't represent our values. She doesn't understand our beliefs. She hates America. And let's face it, anyone who votes against no tax on Social Security, no tax on tips, and no tax on overtimes clearly doesn't like her state, but probably does like her portfolio. And but at the same time, I thought she was a communist. So pretty typical of the hardcore lefties. I'm sure that Karl Marx had a couple bucks on his way out the door. The same thing went with Mao Zedong, too. So she's hanging with them. She's hanging with them.
Here's what I want to get in, Jeff. Very important to talk about. California election. So the hallmark of communists, and it was Stalin who said, it doesn't matter how many people vote, it matters who counts the vote. And communists count the vote, and they rig the elections. Once they're in, you can never get rid of them. Because once they're in control, and you can't get at the wheels of power, and you can't count the votes because they won't let you. That's what's happening in California now, and they're stealing it right in front of us. Spencer Pratt, it's already been stolen. It's over. He's already behind in last place. There's no possible way now he'll make the runoff because there's still like 150,000 votes left to count. All of them are mail-ins. They're all going to be left, and he's dead. He's going to be left in the rubble. Even though he won on election night and he was in the runoff, or I should say he came in second, but he made the runoff on election night. And I believe Steve Hilton's in the exact same shape. He's dead, a DOA, dead on arrival. He will be in the runoff, but it doesn't matter because when you add all the other guys together in the general election, he will lose like 55 to 35 or something like that. So what's the point of even running in a communist blue state? They've got everything rigged and they're doing it right in front of our face because they have no shame.
Well, not only do they have no shame, but they actually follow the policies of Stalin. I agree with Stalin's comment. It doesn't make a difference who votes. It makes a difference who counts. The other part of that is that populations just want to know that there was an election. That's enough for them in the views of Joseph Stalin. So the fact that they do an election, even though it's completely rigged, even though it's completely fraudulent, it doesn't matter to them, because they are basically communists and socialists. So the fact that they give the people an election, regardless of whether the results make a difference, is all that matters to so many people. And I hate to agree with Joseph Stalin, but that's the way it's looking. It's absolutely shameful. It's rigged. You cannot, succeed in California. And they do it shamelessly, just the same way they stole 2020 when they're walking in suitcases of ballots and broken toilets and all the shenanigans that Wayne, you so proudly and brilliantly called out when everyone was had this false sense of security with our election, And it wasn't 2,000 mules. It was probably 5,000 mules, is my guess.
It's so easy to see that elections are stolen. I like to use this example all the time. Jeff, if you were in a college class and a college professor said, I've just put in place new rules to make it literally impossible to cheat on my exams. And 1/3 of the class went wild and started throwing chairs and breaking windows and throwing pens at the teacher to take his eyes out and screaming, no, we can't allow it. wouldn't you immediately know that those are the ones who are cheating on the exams? So when Democrats freak out because Trump simply wants voter ID so you can't vote 20 times, or you're not an illegal alien, or you're not dead, or you're not homeless with no address.
Or in prison, yeah.
Or in prison. And he simply wants you to prove you're a citizen, and he simply wants paper ballots so the election can't be hacked from outside the United States by our enemies. Democrats lose their minds and go insane and hire lawyers and teams of lawyers, armies of lawyers. That shows you they're stealing elections. It's that simple.
Oh, 100%. They rig elections. That's what they do. I think Joe Biden said it best, where he said we have the largest, what did he say, election
vote fraud in history.
In the history of America.
Right.
I mean, Joe Biden speaks the truth when he's halfway down that dementia road.
Yes.
So
from the mouth of dementia babes.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And give a little ice cream, it gets even worse. So I mean, these guys are just totally a joke. But that's why people are very excited, because just like you, Wayne, I'm perfectly comfortable calling these guys out and speaking the truth, because how much I love America, how much I love Nevada, and how much I see is at stake. And it's really at stake. We don't want to become the Communist Republic of California. I'm a refugee of those guys. I know how they work. I know how they operate. And it is just, it's unbelievable. And they just do it unabashedly. And for them, remember, the ends always justify the means. And, their idols are Mao Zedong and Joseph Stalin.
Karl Marx and Joseph Stalin, yeah.
That's who they like. And
whoever ran East Germany.
They treat us like Stalin treats people too. They came after you viciously. They came after me as U.S. ambassador in Iceland viciously. For them, it's a blood sport. But that's the reason why they're not going to let Steve Hilton win in California either, because they know that if Steve Hilton wins, they go to jail, and they can't have that. And it's a miracle. It's a miracle that President Trump won in 2024. Because they were probably just freaking out. And they still are. They're still playing their games. They're trying to run out the clock.
Jeff, that's why they can't take a chance on Spencer Pratt or Steve Hilton. They don't even want them in the runoff, because you just never know. Even though they think they have things rigged and locked up, they thought they had it locked up against Trump with Hillary in 2016. They thought they had it locked with Joe Biden after COVID in 2020. And of course, they did have it locked, but Trump really won that election. We all know that. So he beat them, even though he was, the media attacked him and they were cheating like crazy. He still won. And then they thought he was locked against either Biden or Kamala. They thought they had it rigged in 2024. So they can't take a chance that Pratt could be another Trump, or Hilton could be another Trump and pull off a miracle. So they don't even want them in the runoff. Listen, we got to run. Your election is tomorrow night, your primary. Jeff Gunter, Dr. Jeff Gunter, CD3, the only choice, endorsed by Wayne Root. Out of all the candidates in the United States of America, he's my favorite candidate. We got to get him in tomorrow. Tomorrow, when you go for Election Day voting, vote for Dr. Jeff Gunter, CD3 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Wayne. Go, Gunter, go. Go, Gunter, go. Go, Gunter, go. Thanks for having me. God bless you, Wayne.
The Gunter's on fire. I'm Wayne Allyn Root, and we'll be right back for the last segment of the show. 18 straight minutes. We're doing it, man. You wanted less ads. We cut them by 8,000%. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Warzone Live at our new time, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, every single day, Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. The official podcast of the Gateway Pundit, America's 5th largest conservative news site, behind only Fox News, Wall Street Journal, New York Post, Breitbart, and then Gateway Pundit. 2.5 million daily readers, over 1 billion page views, and we are proud to be the official podcast of the Gateway Pundit. Zicha Genesis Medicine is the sponsor of this show, the main title sponsor, and I've been telling you about their medicines to reverse type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's disease, and reverse the number one cause of death in the world, small vessel heart disease. This form of heart disease is responsible for 1/3 of the deaths in the world. Now they have a treatment for it, and they have human data to show it is safe and it works. To get this medicine to market, they are seeking investors to fund more medical research studies. Zicha is offering investors a royalty of 50% of cash received until they reach 10 times their investment. And after 48 months, for any investor who's not happy for any reason, Zicha will pay them back 2 times their initial investment. If you're interested in learning more about this investment opportunity, go to cure-war.com. They created a website just for my fans, cure-war, as in Wayne Allyn, cure-war.com. Wouldn't it be great to make money and help cure diseases at the same time? Go to cure-war.com. All right, we've got our guest here, Josh Manning. He is the editor-at-large at Western Journal, another gigantic conservative website, westernjournal.com, westernjournal.com. And one of the things he wants to talk about, and I see it's a big story, although, Patar, I also see that we don't have the cover of the big story. I don't know if it's on the back of one or it's on the front or another. We did it backwards. I don't know. Something's missing here, Pete. The cover of the story said, luckily I memorized the cover of the story. It said there's basically unrest going on in the street outside the Carmelo Anthony trial, where he was just found guilty of first-degree murder. Some sort of chaos outside the courthouse. So let's go to Josh Manning and find out what's going on, because I'm busy here stuck doing the podcast, so I don't even know what's going on. What's going on?
Wayne, I had the same problem when I was prepping to visit with you, because I'm looking at stories that WJ has covered and would be neat, and I'm not watching breaking as much. And then I turn over to X, and oh my gosh, we've got a guilty verdict. And before the verdict hit, there were large group of black protesters out there, and they were actually kind of counter-protesters. They were, well, not counter-protesters. There were a group of white people out there supporting Austin Metcalf's family. He was the kid who was stabbed by, now we can say it, was stabbed by Carmelo Anthony, and there was a group of protesters out there, a black kid, and there was a group of protesters out there, all seemingly all black people, who were protesting the trial. They were protesting that the jury was all white. They were protesting essentially Austin Metcalf, the victim, the boy who was killed. And he was a boy. He was 17. He wasn't an adult yet.
They've got 2 ridiculous arguments. Number one, same as his defense lawyers. Number one, it was self-defense. So now, if you stab someone in the heart, it's self-defense. And number 2, they argue that it's racist because it's an all-white jury. So, right. I mean, last I checked, the OJ jury found him innocent. It was an all-black jury. And, And remember, the OJ Simpson jury, remember, we had at least one juror afterwards say, oh, yeah, that was a response to Rodney King. Right. Yeah, we were getting back at you because of Rodney King. So they let a murderer go because of Rodney King. So anyway, there were also Black Panthers outside the courthouse, and they were, and they were screaming, "This is war. America is racist. America has always been racist. This is war. This is war." And I was watching it, Wayne, and I couldn't help but think, gosh, if I were there, I would offer this woman a ticket. I would say, listen, I am glad to buy you a ticket back. If that's what you, not back, she's never been to Africa. She's not from Africa, she's from here. And by the way, this woman looked like she weighed 250, 300 pounds. America is one of the few places where if you are an abused, oppressed minority, you end up being overweight, which is a very strange thing. Try being oppressed and abused in Russia. Try being oppressed and abused in China. Try being oppressed and abused in Rwanda. You think Gaza?
They end up fat?
How about Gaza? You'd be very thin in Gaza.
How
very
about
thin.
Somalia? Gaza's a great example. How about Somalia?
Right.
So, so it is like, I posted it on X last night. If they are wanting to start a race war, if Democrats are wanting to start a race war, they could not be doing a better job of it. And it is horrible. Let me hit you with a crazy stat, Wayne. I saw this morning. At the University of Michigan, before we reeled in DEI and affirmative action stuff, at the University of Michigan, if you applied and you got a perfect score on the SAT, that gave you 12 points on their admission scale. If you were black,
let me guess,
you got 20. 20.
Good guess. Good guess. 20.
50%, more than 50% above a perfect SAT score. There are so many programs in place to help Black Americans, yet they claim racism, 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 racism. It's because they've been trained by the Democrat Party to do that. They've been trained by communists to do that. And it is much easier to do that than to work at life. Life is hard. You have to work at it. You can't be lazy. You have to get an education. And if you don't want to do that, it's a lot easier to sit there and take welfare and say, oh, you guys are racist.
Right. Well, listen, I'm white, obviously, and I'm the son of a butcher, and nobody handed me anything my entire life, and I got into Columbia University, and I didn't get into Columbia because I was white. I didn't get in because I was the son of a butcher. I got in because I got the highest SAT scores you could get. I got in because I had straight A pluses. I got in because I was valedictorian in my class. That's why I got in. So if you tell me a black kid gets into Harvard and he does the same thing as me, highest SAT scores, valedictorian, number one in his class, straight A pluses for 4 years of college. I mean, literally, my lowest grade in 4 years of high school, I meant to say high school, my lowest grade in 4 years of high school, I believe, was an A. I got almost 100% A pluses in every single course. That's why I got into Columbia. If you're black and you could do that, you deserve to go to Harvard. I got no problem. Not only a problem, I welcome you. But if you can't beat me, you shouldn't be in. You shouldn't be in with lower scores than me because your color is black. And you shouldn't get off with murder because you're black. And I thank God, finally, we have a just verdict. And I believe, if I read it correctly, I was looking very quickly, it was guilty of first-degree murder. So he will spend the rest of his life in prison in Texas, I would guess. This is not some joke blue state where you get found guilty of murder and you're out in 5 years. I think this is life in prison for Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, it is.
I hope so.
I think the only reason he got off with life is that he was underage when he stabbed him, if I remember this correctly. Otherwise, he could have been looking at the death penalty, which, frankly, Wayne, I think we actually need to revisit this idea that you can't have the death penalty for people who are underage. In cases like this, in really heinous, horrific cases like this, it's not clear to me why in the world, if you're 17, you shouldn't be executed. You have proven that you can't be trusted in society. You've proven it. Why in the world wouldn't we execute the person and not have to spend all of the insane amounts of money that we spend housing them in prison, giving them cable TV and giving them, you remember that, giving them tablets so that they can watch porn. Why would why would we do that? It makes no sense.
Makes no sense. And listen, I'm a big believer in the death penalty for only one reason. I believe in revenge. Once you kill someone, they're gone forever after you kill them. So it's good. You'll never kill someone again, and you get revenge for the person's family that died. So I'm all for the death penalty. I'm not against life in prison. I'm not against life in prison. I don't want to spend that money if I don't have to. But my point to you is, Josh, that life in prison would at least be acceptable to me if it really meant life. My problem is in these blue states, life in prison is really like 20 years to life, and then with good behavior, they let you off in 15. So if you committed the crime at 25 years old, you're 40 and back on the streets again, and almost guaranteed to kill again. So life doesn't mean life in a blue state.
Well, that was the Sikh who killed the college student in the UK. He got life, but it was a minimum of 20 years.
Right.
So
and you might get off for good
a life
behavior in 15.
sentence. But then you get out in 20, and then when you put good behavior, time already served, this and that and the other, you get out in 15 years. I'll tell you another story. I know a young man who was caught on massive drug charges. He had just turned 18, massive drug charges. Was looking at 30 to 50 years in prison over this, a lot of felonies stacked up. And he's probably going to serve about a year. Yeah. Now, this system, I know this person, I know the family, there's some amount of sympathy there, but this system where you allow people to do horrible things and then you don't punish them. We have not got a prison population. We do have a prison population problem, Wayne. We have too few people in prison, and that's hard to say. And people point to Europe and they say, "Oh, well, prison populations are so much smaller there." Well, let me ask you: was Europe settled by cowboys and pioneers? No. The U.S. was settled by cowboys and pioneers. You're going to have more violence here. That's sad. You're going to have more violence here. But the problem, and we could actually fix the prison problem. If we started throwing recidivists in jail, you prove three times that you just can't be trusted.
Right.
Put them in jail. You cut. Gosh, I think the stat is if you do like 5 strikes and you're out. You can clear out like 60% of crime right there. Right. We can fix the prison problem if we'll just imprison the right people.
Right. And listen, you and I think alike. I've said this on my shows so many times, Josh, it's almost ridiculous. I've said that whatever happened to 3 strikes and you're out, my guess is if you took all the criminals that are 3 strikes and more, you'd wipe out crime in this country to such an extent that our streets would be safe again. Because it's the same people committing the crimes again and again and again.
So easy.
You just saw in New York City, someone stabbed, 5 or 6 people at Penn Station. And I saw that he was let out of prison after doing almost the exact same thing just a couple of years ago. There's the same crazy people again and again and again. It's just sickening. And by the way, remember that girl, what was her name, like Varushka in North Carolina, riding the rail, the little blonde girl, the black guy cut her throat? Yeah. I saw today, and he's being tried federally. He was found not capable of serving trial. So he will not, I guess he'll spend the rest of his life in a mental institution, or maybe not the rest of his life. Maybe you spend 20 years and the doctor says you're okay now and they let you out. But he's never going to really be charged, serve time for murder of that poor little girl that happened on video that the whole world saw.
There's maybe good news on that, and you may have more up-to-date information than I do, but the last I saw was that the ruling that he wasn't fit to stand trial was a state ruling. The feds have come in, and they are going to try him. Now, if there's been a federal ruling that he can't stand trial, I haven't seen that yet. Maybe that's happening.
This is the headline I've got that I downloaded a little while ago. Monster who brutally murdered Ukrainian immigrant Irina Zarutska in cold blood found not competent to stand trial in federal case. That's what it says.
Oh, there you go. You've got it more up to date than I do. The evil demon savagely murdered innocent Ukrainian immigrant in cold blood last year will not be standing trial at this time in his federal case because of his mental state. The findings came after what officials called a lengthy process that included interviews and a review of medical records. So evidently this is a federal ruling, not a state ruling, and now he can't serve life in prison or get the death penalty when we all saw him cut that poor girl's throat. Literally. The look of horror on her face was something I can never forget the rest of my life. And when she saw that man hulking over about to cut her throat, and then her throat was cut and the blood was gushing out and she couldn't speak, the look on her face was something you could never forget. Incredible. That was a turning point for me. We all saw the video, and then it cut off right before the stabbing, and then they released. Somebody got the video showing the stabbing and showing her this look of horror on her face, and then she just slowly slumps over in her chair. And there are 5 or 6 black people right there in the train. They do nothing, and I mean that video changed how I perceive a lot of this stuff. And we are living in a world, we don't have to live like this. We've got to do something about it. We have to deal with black culture, which is so incredibly violent. But again, Wayne, like you and I were saying, pull out the worst criminals there. They've done this in Memphis. Memphis is kind of my hometown. My dad was telling me, he was talking to a couple of black guys there and said, hey, how do you guys feel about what Trump did with the National Guard and pulling all the really bad guys off the streets? And they said,
and they were happy, right?
We love it.
Right,
we love it. This is the best. So black communities are so hurt. Tom Sowell
they don't want to defund the police. Blacks never wanted to defund the police. They're the ones who were the beneficiary of police.
He said he is so glad he grew up before whites decided to try to help black people, because that actually gave him a chance. When we try to help black people, what we've done is put the worst criminals back out on the street to victimize black people. Black people do victimize blacks more than whites.
Here's the answer that I gave on social media. I think it was yesterday or the day before. I said, look, when you see all these stabbings and all these shootings and all these murders in bad neighborhoods, the answer is to, and you see white people being killed by black people in these bad neighborhoods. The answer is to leave that state and go to a red state where you have law and order judges and you have law and order police and you have no defunding of the police and you're allowed to carry your own weapon for self-defense. That's the answer. That's the only answer I could find. Then I see an article that in a specific school, I don't know where it was, Americans, I think it was Massachusetts, American students can't carry knives to school for self-defense unless they're Sikhs. If you're a Sikh, meaning from India, you're allowed to carry a knife and no one else can. Insanity.
Well, but Wayne, you have to be a sincere Sikh. If you're not a sincere Sikh, if you won't sign a piece of paper saying that you're a sincere Sikh, you can't carry that deadly ceremonial knife. Yeah, it's true. And here's what's interesting. They did this. It's just surfaced after the Henry Nowak killing, but they actually did this. This Massachusetts school district did it 2 years ago. They did it in 2024. They clearly, well, they could have seen this story and just ignored it because they're leftist. But in 2022, you know what happened in the UK, Wayne? A student who was a Sikh who was carrying a knife, stabbed, and I think he killed him. I can't remember if he killed him or if he just badly hurt him, another student. So, Massachusetts, liberals in Massachusetts look at that and say, well, it's happened before that we've had a student stabbed. Yeah, let's try it again. It probably won't happen again. And what happens? In the UK, we have another incident of that. It's horrible.
All right, we're on the way out. We have these 18-minute segments now, Josh. You get lots of time to talk.
18.
And the 18 is up, man. It's time flies when you're having fun. We're off, Josh. Editor-at-large at Western Journal, westernjournal.com. Josh Manning, good friend of the show, and good friend of Wayne Allyn. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Wayne.
Wayne Allyn, of course, the big news is President Trump declares that the Iran war is basically over. He cancels planned strikes. He striked last night. He striked pretty hard. He says they've given in. He says they'll sign the deal next week. I love President Trump, but I've heard this crap before 1,000 times. I have no faith at all that it's true. I don't mean that President Trump's lying. I mean that Iran's lying. They say they'll sign the deal, and then they shoot more missiles at Israel and shoot more missiles and capture our boats. And they're just terrible, terrible people, and their word means absolutely nothing. So I just don't believe one word they're saying. It's very hard to negotiate with people that are complete liars. I believe we have destroyed basically their infrastructure of their country, and they claim everything's fine and everything's great, and they're going to rebuild in 5 minutes, and the mighty United States didn't do any damage, and they're liars. And they've got the liberal media on their side, so we keep hearing that President Trump's being humiliated, and President Trump doesn't know what he's doing, and they didn't have the right planning for the award. The reality is we've wiped them off the face of the earth. They have no infrastructure anymore and no military anymore. And all you hear is lies from the media and all you hear is lies from Iran. So hopefully it's the truth this time. Hopefully they will abide by the terms. Hopefully they'll give up their nuclear. Hopefully they'll open up the Strait of Hormuz literally the next day. Stock market's going to go up 2,000 points the next day. And oil's going to drop like a rock to $60, and gold is going to fly and be back to 4,500 to 5,000, and life's going to be good again. So I hope it's true. I hope against hope. I pray it's true. But I don't trust anything that comes from Iran. All right, Zicha Genesis Medicine is the sponsor of this segment. It is the guest segment. Great guest standing by. I've been telling you about Zicha Genesis Medicines to reverse type 2 diabetes and reverse Parkinson's disease and reverse the number one cause of death in the world, small vessel heart disease. This form of heart disease is responsible for 1/3 of the deaths in the world. Now they have a treatment for it, and they have human data to show it's safe and it works. To get this medicine to market, they're seeking investors to fund medical research studies. Zicha is offering investors a royalty of 50% of cash received until they reach 10 times their investment. If you're interested in learning more about this investment opportunity, go to cure-war.com. Cure, C-U-R-E-war for Wayne Allyn. They created a website just for my fans, cure-war.com. Wouldn't it be great to make money and help cure diseases At the same time, go to cure-war.com. All right. Our guest is standing by, Peter Johnson, expert negotiator and mediator, best-selling author of the new book, Negotiating with Trump. Peter Johnson, welcome to the Wayne Root Show. How are you?
Wayne, it's a pleasure to be on with you. Thank you. And I'm just glad, based on what you just showed us, that we're not shirtless right now, because I think you'd put me to shame.
Thank you. I wrote a book, so we're in the same club, you and I. wrote a book called Trump Rules. It was written in 2020. It had very bad timing, by the way. I had bad timing. I wrote the book throughout 2020, and then I released it in November of 2020, right after Trump had lost the election, or seemingly lost the election. I don't believe he lost, but seemingly lost the election, was out of office. And I wrote a book called Trump Rules, about the success rules of Trump and how he always wins. And of course, he just lost. So my timing wasn't good, but I've studied Trump since I was a kid at Columbia University. And I was a kid at the age of 18 at Columbia in 1979. So it was 40 plus years ago. I've been studying Trump and everything he does. And I wrote down all the rules of Trump that I believed led to his success and that I've used for my success. So I'm guessing that a lot of things in your book are in common with my book, and I'm guessing I'd really like your book. So let's talk about it. Your book provides President Trump's lessons on power and influence and dealing with extreme bargainers. Right now, Trump's negotiating with Iran. I guess you call them extreme bargainers. What can we take from your book to better understand what's happening in these Iran war negotiations?
Well, that's a great question. Let me just step back and say that, first off, I wrote the book exactly why you probably wrote your book, which is he's an incredible case example. We have more data on President Trump across 6 decades of deal making in business and politics that we can draw upon to see where he's done well and where he could be more effective. And like all negotiators, we can all get better at different things. This is what I do. I advise corporations, governments around the world on how to deal with particularly challenging negotiations. So I would just say President Trump, as I say in my book, people may want to vilify certain things that he does or attack him as a person. This analysis is independent of who he is as a person. It just looks at his influence style and what works and what doesn't work for himself and for the country. And I call him a genius. I call him a genius, by the way, in certain aspects of negotiation.
Is Iran working? Is he winning the negotiation, quote unquote? What do you think?
Yeah, look, just straight out. I think the U.S. is challenged in Iran. I think it's surprising the U.S. in ways that it didn't foresee. The Strait of Hormuz and the leverage. Trump talks a lot about leverage in The Art of the Deal, as you know. He loves leverage, and he knows that right now Iran's got some leverage in the Strait. So I think on that front, it's not as effective. I think on the nuclear front, just to put this to you, if your neighbor had a needle, and they have a big property, I'm guessing your neighbors, Wayne. If they have a needle and they've hidden it somewhere, this is enriched uranium equivalent, are you better to bomb the heck out of them to find out where that needle is and hope it pops to the surface, or better to try to talk to them firmly and get what you want in a more collaborative way? As much as we may not think the Iranians are good people, as you said, I don't know if I don't feel that way. I don't generalize about people, but I respect that you say that. If you want that from your neighbor, that needle, working with them can be easier than working against them. And I fear that my last book was about nuclear arms, that it may be harder now to get what the president wants on the nuclear front, as well as with the impact on the nation in terms of gas prices. That said, I have told lots of stories of how President Trump has pulled success out of the jaws of defeat, and I would never bet against him.
Well, his most successful negotiation, I guess, you would say, is back when he was completely broke. He was a billionaire, but broke. I remember when he was walking, it was the lead story in the New York Post or the Daily News. He was walking down the street, Fifth Avenue, and he had Marla Maples on his arm, his second wife, and she saw a homeless bum, and said, wow, that poor man. And Donald Trump said to her, honey, don't feel bad for him. He's got more money than I do. And she said, what do you mean? He said, he's broke zero and I'm negative 2 billion. So I always thought that was a great line. So he got out of that somehow, some way. He escaped. And of course, I've heard people say the reason he escaped is when you owe the bank $1 million, you're dead. But when you owe the bank a couple of $1 billion, they're dead. You're the one who's in negotiating position, right? So he was in good negotiating position. He could have put the banks out of business. So he handled that really smart and he got out of it. Now he's the richest he's ever been. So tell me his best negotiations. You've got some stories.
Yeah, I go back to Trump Tower, Grand Hyatt Hotel when you talk about when he was just starting out, how he convinced the city and all this, he stitched together the land for Trump Tower, Grand Hyatt Hotel as well, which was a huge success for him. Some of those earliest deals, I think, were some of his best. He's getting on The Apprentice. And that was a deal that he struck in terms of ownership as well of a very successful show that allowed him to cement that image of success for the American people. And in polls that were done right up until just before the last election, you can still tell if his followers watched The Apprentice because of how they describe him as a wise businessman who's very successful and would be helpful to the nation in applying those skills. And those who didn't watch The Apprentice talk about his policies that they like immigration. But just incredible that from anchoring the perceptions of the American people, he did that so effectively, even when, as you say, I wouldn't call him a bum personally, but you could do that. You're a friend. He was certainly up against the wall financially and otherwise. I talk about a lot of his strengths, including the psychology of negotiation that he applies in his negotiations, contrast principle, where he starts high, other side starts low, and he ends up maybe in the middle, but also testing limits. And sometimes the reason he tests is because people say yes to him, perhaps unexpectedly, and he gets the deal he wants. That's the upside. The downside, I would say, is his approach based on best negotiation practices can, as you know, and I don't have to tell you, can be very adversarial, very aggressive, overreaching, and it can alienate a lot of people, and it has on the trade front with other nations, and I think that could ultimately hurt the U.S. And its economy, and it's hard on others who he's dealing with who won't want to do business with him as a result. But the reason I wrote this book is the country's polarized, and this is a look at the man based on not judging him or what he's trying to achieve for the most part, because we could all disagree on that. There are lots of blogs on that front and podcasts. But what does he do effectively? He negotiated his way to power twice against the odds. When you look at where he started, as you say, in 2004 with The Apprentice, to 2021 post January 6th. When you looked at him on January 7th, and if I were to tell you he negotiated his way to power, however he did it, it's a brilliant story and influence.
So you mentioned Celebrity Apprentice, and it's funny because I got a funny story for you. So back in 2015, he announced for president. I think it was like June 15th, 2015. And I was corresponding with him back and forth. We were emailing back and forth. And I was there before he ever announced for president. I told him he should announce for president. He sent me a note on the 14th of June and said, you're going to be very happy tomorrow, Wayne. And I knew that meant he was coming down the escalator and he was announcing for president. Well, and then he did that. And then within a few days, within a day, I wrote a column at Fox News and I said, you're looking at the next president of the United States. He was at 1% in the polls. And I said, you're looking at the next president of the United States. And then I left on a trip because I was a motivational speaker in those days. Before I had my political show, I was like a Tony Robbins speaker around the world talking about business. And I left for a trip to Johannesburg, South Africa to deliver a speech there. So now when the speech is done, Peter, they send a limo to get me at the hotel and drive me to the Joburg airport. The limo driver is a black South African, and he's very nice, very cordial, and he's listening to political radio station while I'm in the limo. And I hear them talking about Donald Trump. He had just announced like the week before. So I said to the limo driver, hey, what do you know about Donald Trump here in South Africa? And he said, oh, are you kidding, Mr. Root? That's what he said to me, Mr. Root. He said, I love Donald Trump. He's your next president. And I said, what makes you say that? And he said, I've watched every episode of The Apprentice and Celebrity Apprentice, and that is the smartest man in the world, and you are the luckiest people in the world to have him as your next president, because he's going to teach everyone in America how to be rich. And I heard that, and I said, you know, if a limo driver, a black man from South Africa who drives limos, can think that highly of President Trump from watching Apprentice and Celebrity Apprentice, I think he's really good. That's what I said. I really do believe he's going to be the next president of the United States. So that Celebrity Apprentice, that brand got out to the whole world. Everybody watched it. Even poor people in South Africa were sitting in front of the TV going, wow, what could I learn from Donald Trump? Kind of amazing, right?
Absolutely. And it anchored people's perceptions of Trump as in a very different way than their perceptions of him before that, where he was unknown, or as he said himself, you know, a lot of people thought he was a barbarian. And The Apprentice, staged as it was, gave him an opportunity to establish that platform. And he said at the time to Mark Burnett, the producer of The Apprentice, you know what, I think this might just allow me to run for president. So it started back at that time. And to be clear, when we're talking about negotiating, you're negotiating anytime you're trying to influence someone to do something. Most of the time, it's not lawyers in a boardroom. It's just trying to influence someone. And his influence through that show. Do you know how many seasons The Apprentice ran for?
I don't even know. What's the number?
Yes.
I'll say like 8 or 9 or 10, somewhere in there.
Yeah, which is what the most successful shows, MASH, Friends, Breaking Bad, ran for that kind of 8, 10 seasons, 14 seasons.
Wow.
Wayne.
Wow,
and
that's amazing.
Peaking at 28 million people at its most popular. So,
wow.
You know, but Trump is a genius when it comes to knowing what kind of vehicle he can use to gain the profile, to be seen successfully, and honestly, to downplay those bankruptcies and some of the challenges before that. Most people aren't really aware of that because it's not something he plays up. He focuses on the positives.
You know what I learned from Trump? Some of my biggest lessons. Number one is repetition. You know, Trump, repeats the same phrase again and again and again and again. Make America great, make America great, make America great. And every phrase he's got, he repeats it 50 times in a speech. Because most people go, oh, that's ridiculous. I heard that 49 times before. No, it just doesn't stay in your brain. So you've heard it 20 times and 40 times and 50 times. So I'm a big repetition guy.
I heard you say that earlier, before I came on. And, in psychology, we call that anchoring, right?
Yeah.
When people have high uncertainty, you establish the certainty for them, whether it's Trump being successful or whatever he's trying to convince Americans of, such as, you notice he did that. America won the war within the first few days. And for his followers and a lot of your listeners, that's what's going to stick indelibly with them, right. More than anything else that's happened since that time.
Right. Right. And that's, another one I learned from him. You mentioned some of the failures in bankruptcies, and you said he doesn't like to talk about those. But, look, if you're as bright as Donald Trump and you're as sharp as Donald Trump and you've made billions like Donald Trump, and yet you still failed a lot of times, I think that's a positive lesson. Failure is a part of life. It's a part of business. And it isn't whether you'll fail or not, or if you'll fail or not. You will fail. But you've got to pick yourself back up and move on to the next thing. So Trump failed with Trump Airlines. He failed with Trump helicopters. He failed with Trump, I think it was Trump wine or champagne. Who cares? He succeeded with all the rest, and he's a billionaire. You just can't worry about the failures. That's the lesson I learned from Trump.
No, absolutely. And versus you, perhaps, he does not like to talk about them because as part of presenting that image of success. And I think I identify 4 different interests of his, and one of them is affirming him as a winner and having an impact. And that's core to how he was brought up, how his father wanted to see him as a winner. And I think the president struggles with acknowledging those failures, even if, as you say, they no doubt are part of who he is today and his strengths as well.
I think they're a part of everyone. You know, I'm not like him in that way. I've written 20 books. My very first book was called The Joy of Failure in 1997. And it was about the fact that all the success I'd achieved at that stage in life came from the lesson I learned from all the dramatic failures I'd had between 1983 and 1997. I failed a whole bunch. Oh, there it is. Patar, my director, is handed it to me. There's my very first book, The Joy of Failure. Look how young I look. My very first book. I was on the beach in Malibu. I had long hair. The Joy of Failure. So
there's a good-looking young man there.
I was in those days, long time ago. But I do really believe that failure empowered me. I learned a lot of more lessons from failure than you ever learned from winning and from success. So, and I think I got that from Trump. So even though he doesn't want to admit his failures, I think I got that from him. Last but not least, some call him a genius, some call him a madman. What's your final bottom line on Trump?
He's not a madman. He's got his failings on the negotiation front, as we discussed earlier.
Right.
He's got his strengths. I think anyone who wants to call the president crazy can do so at their own peril. He's crazy like a fox, maybe. But I don't see, in negotiation, it's not helpful to assume someone's crazy because you assume you can't influence them because you can't influence crazy. I think it's much more empowering to assume he knows what he's doing. He makes mistakes. He's done a lot of good things for his base. And to influence them, as MAGA has done successfully on the Epstein files and their release, for example, you just got to look at his interests, understand what makes him tick, and he will negotiate with you if you're approaching it the right way.
There you go. I agree with you. And I think you just summed up the Iran war. I don't know what's going to happen. And I think it's a real tough, sticky wicket. It's really tough to try and negotiate with the Iranians. But Trump knows what he's doing. And people think he's crazy because one day he's up, one day he's down. One day he says A, then he says B. One day he says, I'm bombing you. Then he says, I'm bombing you to hell and destroying your whole civilization. Then he says, well, I postponed the bombing. He loves to be the guy that no one could figure out what he's going to do next. He does not want to be someone that people know what he's going to do. That makes him a winner in negotiation by making you stand on the edge of your feet and go, what is he going to do next? I don't know what he's going to do. He's got them all confused. So I think you summed it up. I think we don't know what's really happening in Iran. I think he's probably winning that negotiation, even though from the outside it looks kind of strange. So in any case, the book is called Negotiating with Trump by Peter Johnston. Negotiating with Trump. You can get it at Amazon and all other fine places to get books, I guess, Peter?
Yes, absolutely. Available everywhere, along with your books, including those 2 blank books, which cracked me up. But look, thank you so much for your time. It's really a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Peter. I learned from the best, Donald Trump, since I'm 18 years old, when he was building the Grand Hyatt Hotel at Grand Central Station right down the street from where I was going to college at Columbia University. That's how I first knew about Donald Trump. So that was my history with Trump. Peter Johnston, Negotiating with Trump is the book. Go check it out. I'm Wayne Allyn Root. We're coming back with the last segment of the show. Be right back. Hi, I'm Wayne Allyn Root from Vertical Research Advisory, VRA, Kip Herridge's one-of-a-kind global investment and economic newsletter. Listen up. Trump is in charge. The glory days are here.
Growth rates are only going to grow from here.
This is your 4-year window to make a fortune and set up your retirement for the rest of your life. Kip wins whether the markets are up or down, whether the economy is up or down.
We set our folks up for long-term success.
For 21 years, Kip's been a friend, as well as my personal financial advisor. During that time, he's beaten the markets 86% of the time, while the average Wall Street money manager loses to the market 90% of the time. Now Kip is predicting a new golden age for the economy. Let Kip prove it to you for free. Kip's offering his daily VRA investment letter completely free for 2 weeks. Free for 2 weeks. Try it for 2 weeks. I know you'll stay for life. Join now at VRAinsider.com. The Roots on Fire. Welcome back. This is Warzone Live. We're the official podcast of the Gateway Pundit. And do we have a great guest for you today, because still, in the end, illegal immigration and boys and girls schools and transgender this and transgender that, the open border. There's a million issues in the world. But to me, the number one issue is making money. I'm like Trump, man. Making money's in my DNA. Making money's in my blood. I'm always looking for ways to make more money. In the end, that makes an awful lot of problems go away for the nation and for the middle class and for the people of this country. Making money is got to be our number one goal. Economy, jobs, GDP. That's what really matters. So I got a great guest for you to talk about it. Lost Soldier Oil and Gas has been the sponsor of this show for almost a year now. Do you realize? It's been about a year that they've been the sponsor of my podcast, my national radio show, my national TV show on Real America's Voice TV network. And it's really an amazing property. It took 40 years to piece together this 40,000-acre giant gas discovery, estimated to contain up to 6 trillion cubic feet of gas, making it one of the largest natural gas discoveries in the Rocky Mountain region, in the last 30 years. And they have a management forecast projecting just the first 25 wells to produce 400 million cubic feet per day of natural gas, and by 2035, targeted production of over 1 billion cubic feet a day. An amazing project. And I invested in this project not once but twice last year. I intend to invest a third time this year. And I want to introduce you to the project, and I want to introduce you to the guy who is the CEO and the chairman of the board who invented this project, Mark Bruner, CEO of Lost Soldier Oil and Gas. The website, by the way, lostsoldier.com. Mark, welcome to the show. I haven't had you on in quite a while. You've been running around the world raising money. You've been in Europe. You've been in Switzerland. You've been in Saudi Arabia. You're all over the world. You're an amazing guy. You're always traveling. You're always raising money. You're always running your company. You are a busy man like me. That's hard to nail you down, so it's great to have you back on the show.
So wonderful to be with you again, Wayne. Good to see you.
All right. So you're a second-generation oil and gas man. You're actually a second-generation oil and gas legend. Your previous public companies, Penteco Energy, produced about 100 to 1 for every dollar invested. Investors and stockholders made $100, and Ultra Petroleum, spectacular return for investors. That one was 1,000 to 1 for every dollar invested. People got back 1,000. It was one of the biggest stocks of the entire decade of I think it was the 90s, right? It was the go-go 90s.
Right.
And that stock was one of the highest flyers on Wall Street. So Lost Soldier is an amazing, amazing project, but tell people why it's so amazing, why I guess you think it's even biggest of your career, that would make it bigger than Penteco or Ultra Petroleum. Ultra Petroleum, 1,000 to 1 return on investment, and you say this is the biggest of your career. What do you base that on?
Well, and when I compare it with Ultra Petroleum, it has a sequence of regionally pervasive sands where we can see, based on the seismic interpretation, we can drill up to 500 horizontal wells so far that we could see. And the other wonderful thing is that no one could drill this for 50 years. We've known where all the basins are for 50 years. All of them have been drilled, as far as I know, except this one, because there's a uranium mine out here that was, whenever 3 Mile Island melted down in the early 80s, they started reclamating this mine. Kennecott did 3 years ago. They finished the reclamation. I got a call. I drilled it. And as they say, the rest is history. Certainly the largest gas field I've ever found. Right now, if you compare it with some of the other basins, there's thousands of feet of layer cake type, regionally pervasive, overpressure sands. It's very much like the Haynesville and the Utica. If any of you have heard of those plays, You've probably heard of a guy named Jerry Jones that owned the Dallas Cowboys. That's like his number one play now, okay, the Western Haynesville. And I would encourage everyone to compare what we have with the Western Haynesville, because I think it certainly is comparable. The difference here is we're the only operator. No one else is in here. It's just us. We made the discovery. We have legacy infrastructure that is on its last throws. We can tie into all that legacy infrastructure. We're laying a 5-mile line to start producing gas this year. And, the plan is when we finish this private placement to be producing about 400, 500 million cubic feet a day, 300 million a year in cash flow within 36 months. And then we plan to build a 42 to 46 line 50 miles away to the trading hub one center, about 10 times that. There's another guy named Warren Buffett that's looping on that line that going out to California. So, as you all know, he's no fool. So he's going to send all his gas out to Pacific Corp and the West Coast. So we hope to be able to do that too. Anyway, that's pretty much a summary, Wayne.
So give me some new updates, because remember, I'm one of your investors. I invested not once but twice last year. Very big, healthy investments, by the way, from Wayne Root. And I plan to invest again this year. What's happened between the last time we spoke on TV, which was probably 6 months ago, although you've had your president of your company and your COO talking to me on TV as well, but you were busy traveling. Give us some updates from last year. What exciting things have happened, and tell me what will happen this year in the year 2026.
Well, I think, one of the things that we've done is that you're always looking for permits to drill. You're always looking for right-of-ways and other things in order to be able to lay the pipelines. All this is completed, okay? It's finished, okay? And so we're going to start building this pipeline sometime in July, when what we call the winter stips are off and we can get in here and lay that pipeline. We think it'll take, 45 to 60 days to finish the pipeline. Then we'll be producing gas, okay? So that's going to happen this year. We're very excited about that. The other thing that I think is important is that we have a deal with the federal government. All the leases that we have, they're federal and state leases, they've been put into what we call a federal unit, which means that it's all those different leases. We had like 56 of them. They're one lease now. It means that we can orderly develop this gas field with the cooperation of the federal government. They've stamped the deposit commercial. So all those things have happened. And yeah, we think we're going to be able to do that. We're hoping to be able to drill some of the deep overpressured horizontals this year, at least one, maybe two of those. We're anticipating 50 million a day plus wells. They're going to be expensive. They're $20 to $30 million a piece. But when you're producing those kind of rates, they pay out very quickly. And so, possibly within a year. So something, the field next to us, Lost Soldier Field, which I named my company after, that field's been producing for over 100 years, produced 450 million barrels, still does 3,500 barrels a day. And so some of the deeper stuff that we're looking for and we think we'll find some of those this year as well. So very exciting times for us. And by the way, we also drill when we're not drilling for ourselves for Enbridge, which transports about 30% of the natural gas in the United States. And actually, we're entering into a 23 oil contract with them. I think that would speak very highly of our drilling people and their abilities. And, we're very excited about that relationship with them as well. So we're going to be having revenue out of our drilling company, out of our pipeline company, out of our working interest. And those people that invest will also enjoy a package of overriding royalty as well. So, yeah.
And don't forget, the thing that got me was, I have seen a lot of potential in my life. I think this is the most potential I've ever seen. But potential is one thing. That doesn't mean you ever deliver. You have a track record that's amazing. That's great. Penteco, Ultra Petroleum, very impressive. That was a decision pusher for me. And then, of course, what else can you invest in? Like if I put $100,000 into stocks and those stocks happen to go down, I would get no tax break. It would do nothing for me until the day they went back up. You get a $3,000 deduction on stock losses in a given year. But with oil and gas, it's the most generous tax deduction you can ever get. It's 70% write-off the first year you invest. So if I put $100,000 in, I get a $70,000 tax deduction on my tax return in the first year, and the other 30 over the next, I think, 3 years, right?
Well,
so that's pretty impressive.
There's been a change. It's 100% now, not 70%.
Really?
Under the Trump tax bills. Okay.
But that's for this year coming up, 2026.
Yes.
I invested in 2025, so I have to go by the old rules, I assume. Yeah.
I think the other thing too is that the viewers need to realize that we don't have to process any of this. This is 93% methane, CH4. So no processing. We don't have to build any plants. When we put it into the pipeline, it can go directly into homes. We have people contacting us about putting in data centers. There's a lot of options here that we're going to be looking at, Wayne. So we'll keep you updated as things happen this year.
All right, data centers would seem to be the way to go. That's all anyone talks about now is data centers and how much they use so much, energy. Well, you've got the energy for them, so it would seem like would be a profit center. Last thing, for accredited investors who want to learn more and get involved, they go to lostsoldier.com, and then what happens? Someone gets back to them?
Yeah, we'll get back to them. We give them the information so they can access. They can access all the information. We'll answer their questions, and we look at all our investors as a family. If the Lost Soldier families like what we just need to say, right?
Well, with my big investment, I better be a good family member. I better be loved. Better be loved, Mark.
Well, we'll let you move in. We'll let you move in.
Second home in Wyoming. LostSoldier.com. LostSoldier.com. Go there. Give them your contact information. They'll get right back to you and show you how you can be involved. It's the right project, right time, the right president, the right energy secretary, the right CEO. Mark Bruner with an incredible, spectacular past record. Thank you, Mark. LostSoldier.com.